Okay, everyone, we're getting ready to make block number 8. Block number 8 is called Mosaic 19. It is a series of half square triangles, very much like the other blocks that we've put together so far. So I have laid out here the materials that I will need for this particular block. It's 2 primary colors. The colors that I have selected are blue and this orange here. So for the blue half square triangles, you will need 6 4-inch squares along with 6 white 4-inch squares. And then for the orange pieces, I have 2 4-inch squares along with 2 4-inch white squares. So remember, we are making, for each particular block, we are making 2 completed quilt blocks. So I will begin the process now of creating the half square triangles. So let's go ahead and get started. For the half square triangles, I am going to chain piece them. Let me get... So for the half square triangles, you want to make sure you have the right sides of the material facing each other, and you can either draw a diagonal guideline down the center of your square. I will do that for 1. And then once you have the guideline drawn down the center of your square, you're going to make a stitch on both sides of the guideline, a 1/4 inch away from the line. Let me find a pin that works. Hopefully this one works. Does not. Okay, so you can see the guideline that I have drawn down the center of this material here, the white, the blue line here. So what I'm going to do is line my the edge of my foot up against the line that I have drawn on here, and then I will just begin stitching. So that is one way of starting your half square triangles. I'm going to be using the diagonal tape that you can see that I have here on the sewing machine. This helps because you don't have to draw on each of the lines, so it allows you to sew a little faster and also gives you a reference, a guide. So I'm just laying the right sides of the fabric together and lining up the tip of the top of the square with the edge of the foot, and the bottom tip here is lined up with this blue line on the diagonal tape, and that line is a 1/4 inch from the center. It will create a stitch that's a 1/4 inch away from the center of the block. So I'll just continue that process for all of the squares, and then I will trim them, and we'll have the half square triangles. So hopefully you can see the 2 stitch lines here on either side of the center of the block. This is probably easier where the line is. So on either side of this line that we've drawn on the first block, there is a stitch that is 1/4 inch away from the center of the block. So the next step is to take all of the squares that we've sewn together and then to trim along this center line here, and then you'll end up with 2 half square triangles. So that is the next step in our process here towards making block number 8, which is mosaic number 19. So let me just reposition the camera, and then we will get the half square triangles separated, and then we'll iron and trim them. Okay, this step actually goes relatively fast because we're just trimming along, or cutting, I'll say, along the center of each of the squares. Here is block number 9, actually. This is mosaic 19. All of the half square triangles have been trimmed. So again, we started with 4-inch squared pieces and made them into half square triangles. And the half square triangles have all been trimmed down to 3.5 inches squared. So this is the block layout, and so we will now just begin piecing it together. We'll do columns and then rows, and then we will be on to our final block. So again, this is block number 9. It's called mosaic 19. I actually like this layout. I like it a lot because it's, depending on like what you focus on, you see various things, as with most quilt blocks. But from the vantage point that I'm looking at it now, and I didn't really see it before, you really see like the sawtooth star. Before, I was mostly focused on the center diamond. But yeah, I like this quilt block. So let's begin piecing it together. Okay, here you have it. This is block number 9. It's called mosaic 19. It is completed, and again, I really do like this block. I like the blue and orange color combination, and I like the, as I mentioned before, the variation that you see in this quilt block depending on where your eye happens to land. So the next block is block number 10. That will be the last block in this series, and then following that, we'll put together the entire quilt. So thank you for sticking in there with me just a little bit longer, and we will be finished with the straight stitching Sew Sampler quilt.